Hello, everybody. Welcome to the session on project management. We all know that this is the most sought after discipline, and every industry that we talk about today, let it be banking, let it be retail, let it be life sciences, healthcare, energy, utilities, manufacturing, construction, pharma, every industry needs a project manager. So essentially, that's why the most sought after certification across the globe is project management professional from PMI Project Management Institute. In the next 1 hour, we are going to go through some key slides which will fairly help us understand the philosophy of project management. We'll get more insights into the discipline of project management and how is project management going to help you upgrade your career. Okay, so I'm Lakshmi Srinivas. You can address me as Lakshmi. I've been associated with the firm for the last 6 to 7 years. I'm a freelancer consultant, and I'll be taking this session forward on the introduction to project management. So, agenda, what is a project? We all know, right? When we talk about project management, it's equally important for us to understand what exactly is a project. Okay, so passing PMP in the first attempt can be called as a project, right? A project is unique, a project is progressively elaborated, it is a temporary endeavor, and it is going to help you accomplish certain goals and objectives, right? So, in the world of project management, right, so we talk about projects and we look at good examples of what is a project. A good example can be passing PMP in the first attempt. If you have chosen to become a project manager and if you want to get certified from Project Management Institute, you embark on this journey and you plan to complete your certification in the next 2 to 3 months. So passing PMP in the first attempt very well qualifies to become a project. So what exactly is project management? What are the various fundamental tenets of project management? Okay, what is the project management profession all about? Who is a project manager? A day in the life of a project manager. What are the roles and responsibilities? What exactly is the eligibility criteria? How is PMP going to help you upgrade your career? And which organizations are looking at horizontals and verticals? Who prefer the credential, the PMP credential? Why organizations prefer it? We will quickly also spend some time to understand this important question. And most importantly, learning with us is hands on. Okay, we don't simply read presentations and we move forward. We don't do that. Okay, when you enroll with us, we are going to get into the thick of things. We take very good case studies, we pick up industry examples, we look at templates, we collaborate. Okay, we exchange thoughts, we look at mock examinations so that we cover the length and breadth of the certification program. So that's our way of teaching, right? So learning is going to be fun filled and enriching if you partner with us. So what exactly is a project? A project is a temporary endeavor, right? And it is going to, when pursued, it is going to give you certain, you're going to able to meet certain goals and objectives. So that becomes the definition of a project. So we'll quickly look at the definition. A project is a temporary endeavor that is undertaken to produce a unique product or solution, right? So if you look at, before we move on into the slides, some quick introduction team, right? So when we talk about project management, we all work in organizations, right? We all work in organizations and we all know that every organization will have something called a vision statement. Okay, the vision statement primarily talks about what is the future state. We talk about the mission statement, which primarily talks about what is the purpose. Okay, and then every organization will have a quality policy. If you walk into the reception, you will find a quality policy which states that the customer is the most important person in the premises, and we as a performing organization, we strive to meet and exceed the expectations of the customer. Then we talk about the 3 P's in the organization. One is the portfolio. Okay, then we talk about programs, we talk about projects, and we talk about operations, right? So as a seasoned project manager, if you are going to become PMP certified, you are going to act as an advisory, okay, advisory to the leadership team. And most importantly, what happens, what is the expectation? The expectation fairly is going to grow in leaps and bounds, and you are expected to do 2 things. One is you are expected to grow the business. Okay, you are expected to grow the business and you are expected to run the business, right? So if you are a PMP certified project manager, you not only act as an advisory, you do two things. One is, are we growing in leaps and bounds? Or primarily, what are those landscape, what are those landscape of opportunities that are presented, and how do you elect the most appropriate opportunity? So even that is very important, right? So you are going to act as an advisory. There are a lot of opportunities that are presented in front of you, but as you all know that as a project manager, we are working in an constrained environment. Okay, we are working in a constrained environment. You are not given all the money to work on a project. With the constraints that we have, you are expected to elect the best opportunity so that it becomes beneficial to the organization. So in this context, we are expected to grow the business and we are also expected to run the business. This is considered to be one of the most important aspects of project management. And what are all the various elements that come into picture? So that's how relatively things start, right? We talk about portfolios, which is where the truest intent of an organization lies. That is where all the big decisions are taken. That is where in every organization they decide where the money has to be invested, how much money has to be invested, why do we have to invest money, and what are those benefits that we are going to get because of this investment. So you might ask me, what are the portfolio managers going to do? The portfolio managers are the people who are going to take those decisions, but primarily as a project manager, I am going to facilitate this decision making process, and I'm going to go back and look at the landscape. I'm going to go back and do my required due diligence, and I'm going to go back and give them the required advice on what are those opportunities that we should elect as an organization so that they become beneficial to us, right? So I hope now you are able to understand how a project manager is going to bring value to the table by evaluating the landscape, right? So that's the first thing. So when we talk about project management, relatively right, this is going to be a very important role. And as per PMI's talent triangle, okay, so very important aspect, PMI talent triangle. So when we talk about PMI's talent triangle, what does Project Management Institute expect? That a project manager is able to demonstrate competency on three important disciplines. One is leadership, okay, your ability to be a servant leader, your ability to demonstrate leadership, rise to the occasion, deal with conflicts, manage teams, demonstrate very strong interpersonal skills, okay, getting the job done, your ability to empathize with people, all this becomes so very important. We talk about leadership. Then we talk about the technical aspects of project management, ability to comprehend problems, and most importantly, getting the job done, looking at which life cycle model is best suited for a project. And then we talk about strategy and business management, right? So this is where we spoke about how are you going to act as an advisory, and how are you going to ensure that you are able to grow the business and run the business. Okay, so what are your strategies and how are you going to grow and run the business? So three important disciplines that you should be aware of as seasoned project managers, and this is directly from the horse's mouth. This is the expectation from PMI. Okay, so end of the day, if you look at this, the broad vision and mission, it again aligns back to one, your ability to demonstrate leadership. End of the day, you have to demonstrate leadership, right? To as you start working with people, you cannot use a command and control approach, right? So leadership is one important aspect, and as a seasoned project manager, you are expected to demonstrate leadership, primarily solving the problem to accomplish the goals and objectives. So end of the day, it maps to the goals and objectives. Okay, we talk about technical project management, and how is this problem able to ensure that you are able to provide value to your shareholders, value to your stakeholders, and most importantly, how are you able to grow the business and run the business? So that is how this is essentially mapped to the vision and mission statement. Okay, so primarily, right, what are the various elements that come into picture when we talk about project management? What are all the various elements of project management? Any opening thoughts? What are all the various aspects that have to be taken into account as you start working on a project? Any idea? So let us take this example. I'll try to give you a very simple example. So if you take a closer look at the PMI's talent triangle, when we talk about what comes into picture, when we talk about technical project management, we look at all those key techniques, right? So we talk about what is the life cycle model, establishing a governance structure, how do you better understand requirements, how do you deal with risks. All these things will come into the technical aspect of project management. Okay. Now let me give you a very simple example on what is exactly expected in terms of the role of a PM. Okay, role of an PM is primarily it is project manager. Okay, and given that this session is primarily on project management, we will confine to project management. So this is how we act as a differentiator in the market. If you enroll with us, okay, we take live examples and there is no need for you to memorize anything. Okay, and now I am going to give you a very simple and easy to remember example on the essence of project management. Okay, let us start this. What is the primary goal of this whole exercise? Primarily, right, probably 3 months from now, 2 months from now, you enroll with us, or you have made up your mind that project management, there is a lot of opportunity in the space of project management and you want to get certified. Okay, so you primarily have a goal which is to become PMP certified. Okay, now I will tell you as a PM what are all the various aspects that you should be taking care of, and I will map this to this example. So you wanted to become PMP certified, so you started looking at who are the various service providers who are available in the market who can provide training on project management. End of the day, we all know English, we all have access to material, we all have access to Google, and but still you want to enroll with a specific provider because one, they give you the required resources, you have an instructor who is certified, who has been accredited by PMI, and he is going to help you understand the philosophy in a better way. And under this mentorship program, you are able to rise to the occasion and you are able to meet your goal, right? So the first important thing is, okay, for you, who is your primary stakeholder? For you, the primary stakeholder is PMI, Project Management Institute, because this is a certification which has come from Project Management Institute. So the first important thing that we will be talking about in project management is stakeholders, right? And a good example of stakeholders is one, the Project Management Institute. And the second important thing is you have spoken to your line manager about this endeavor and they have given you the required approvals, or there is a certain amount of budget that is available. In some cases it is self-funded, you pay it from your pocket, or in some cases this is sponsored by your organization. So your primary set of stakeholders is one, external stakeholders PMI, internal stakeholders within the organization, and you are obtaining services from Edureka. So even we are your stakeholders. So, and most importantly, what are you doing here? You are procuring services. Okay, sometimes you will have to work with an external agency to get some of your work done, and hence you are procuring services. So we will talk about procurement. Okay, so two elements that are very clear to us. No memorization required. We are taking a lightweight example. And what are we looking at? We are looking at what are all the various key attributes and elements that are associated with project management. That's the second important thing. Then what do you do with stakeholders? You communicate. So you are going to communicate. Once you join with us, it's going to be an instructor-led online session. Okay, the communication is going to be bidirectional. There is exchange of information. We understand topics, we discuss topics, we collaborate on topics, we look at templates, we look at case studies, we look at mock examinations, and then eventually, right, you are equipped with the required knowledge. So communication becomes a very important aspect, and we as service providers, we need to ensure that we are able to understand your expectations, because you are our primary stakeholders and we are able to align to the communication requirements of each of the individuals who have partnered with us in this project called passing PMP in the first attempt. Then what do you want to do? The whole objective of this exercise is passing PMP. So we will call that the scope of work. Okay, so for every project, there are three important things that come into picture. One is primarily the scope of work, and in this case, the scope of work is to become PMP certified. Then the next important thing is every goal, okay, every goal in life has to be time boxed, right? So that's very important, right? Because you can't spend the rest of your life on pursuing a single goal. Okay, so probably you tell yourself that in the year 2022, in the first 3 months, I'm going to get certified. So you're arriving at something called, what is it called? It is called schedule. Okay, and now when you start working on a project, when you have a schedule in mind, the next important thing is what is required to work on a project. To work on a project, I will need resources. Now these resources, they could be hardware resources, it could be software resources, it could be infrastructure resources, or it could be human resources, or it could be financial resources. Any kind of resource that is primarily required on the project. In this pandemic situation, we felt that working with an instructor online is much better than doing a classroom webinar. So we elected an instructor-led online session. Learning becomes so easy with us because you can tune in from the same place that you are sitting, and you can talk to the instructor. There is an exchange of information. You are given the required, you are provided the required resources, you are provided the required training material, and the instructor is going to help you work on the training program. So we talk about resources. So all that you need is, you need a laptop, you need a stable internet connection. Learning is becoming fun filled because you are learning from the same place that you are sitting. And just in case due to any personal reasons or professional reasons, in case if you are not able to attend the webinar, we also give you access to the recorded session, right? So what else do you think can really hold you back? It's going to be so easy, right? So resources, what are all the various resources that are required for you to work on the project? Okay, and then the third important aspect is talking about cost. End of the day, nothing comes free of cost. Okay, if you go back to the PMI site, there is a certain amount of fees that you will have to pay for the examination, right? So the exam fees is directly provided on the PMI site. If you are based out of India, you will have to pay 23,459 if you're a member, and if you're a non-member, you pay 42,863. So primarily, right, we are talking about one of the most important element, which is cost. Okay, so how many elements have we discussed now? We spoke about stakeholders, we spoke about, we'll number it, it becomes easy. 1, stakeholders. 2, procurement. 3, communication. 4 is scope. 5 is schedule. 6 is cost, and 7 is resources. The eighth one is, end of the day, in today's world, what is very important, we want to be extremely successful in anything and everything that we do. So how do we translate that? We talk about something called quality. When you pass the PMP examination, you want to come out with flying colors. You want to obtain proficiency in all the domains. So we talk about quality. Quality is one of the most important aspects of any project. Quality, in a most simplest way, could be talking about meeting requirements, right? In a layman's language, we talk about quality meeting the requirements, meeting both the implicit requirements and explicit requirements. Then what is the next element? 2 years back, life was so happy, right? We were living in a very careless way. But suddenly what happened? The coronavirus disease, it came into picture, and it has redefined our thought process, right? So if you go back and look at historical information, we had something called the Spanish flu, right? The Spanish flu was there. When did the Spanish flu come into picture? The Spanish flu, also known as the Great Influenza Epidemic or the 1918 influenza. We were not even born at that time. At least, right, today, if you look at 2 years or 2.5 years back, nobody knew that. No, at least we are blessed with forgetfulness, right? We suddenly realized that something happened, and it took some time for us to understand that this was a pandemic, and where somebody ate something in China, and the whole world had to pay a price for it. Okay, so but was it one of its kind? No. If you go back and look at historical information, we had something called the Spanish flu. Okay, it was a pandemic, and the whole world had to pay a price for it, right? So why are we suddenly talking about the Spanish flu? It is primarily because when we talk about project management, Okay, what are those uncertainties that are going to impact your project? That is very, very important. So when we talk about uncertainties, we are getting introduced to a very important element which is called risk management. Okay, risk management is primarily talking about what are those uncertainties that are there in the project which are going to impact your project. So we will definitely look at the length and breadth of risk management. So what is the next important thing? The next important thing is when you roll up all of them together, we talk about integration management, right? So because end of the day, all these elements when put together, they have to work like a well-oiled machine, and that is where the philosophy of integration management comes into picture. And you are going to integrate all these elements, and you are going to take lead as a project manager. Okay. Now tell me, if you are going to learn this way, will memorization be required? Okay. So we looked at 10 elements of project management. Okay. Stakeholders, procurement, communication, scope, schedule, cost, resources, quality, risk, and integration. So we all know, right, that when we talk about, let it be any discipline, okay, let it be any aspect of life. What do you think is the most important thing? There has to be some method. There has to be some way in which we work on a project. So we all know, right, that failing to plan is planning to fail. Okay, when we talk about project management, the first important thing is you have to plan. Okay, so for every topic that we are going to talk about, you will have a plan. When we talk about project management, a project manager is expected to prepare something called the project management plan. And this project management plan is going to comprise of 9 subsidiary plans. We talk about the stakeholder management plan, we talk about the procurement management plan, we talk about communication management plan, we talk about the scope management plan, we talk about the schedule management plan, we talk about the cost management plan, we talk about the resource management plan, we talk about the quality management plan, we talk about the risk management plan. And when you roll all of them up, it becomes your, the first important document which is required is your project management plan, right? So when you're a project manager, the expectation is you are able to prepare a plan. And we always, any irrespective of anything, let it be your personal life or professional life, we talk about 4 important aspects. Okay, if you have to complete a project, the first thing is you will have to plan. Failing to plan is planning to fail. Then we talk about execution, where you flip the plan into action. And once you flip the plan into action, the next important thing is you have to check. Check on what? There are 2 things. You have a plan and there is an actual, right? So what will happen when there is a plan and there is an actual? Let us take an example where the initial budget for a project, okay, is $100, right? And this project is expected to span across, let us say 8 weeks, like 8 weeks, right? So now what do? This is your plan. But as you start working on the project, you start expending money, and let us say you have consumed $20, and out of the 8 weeks you have completed 2 weeks, and the plan says that after completing 2 weeks you should have completed 20% of the work. Okay, but unfortunately you have completed only 5% of the work, right? So which means that we were not able to make the desired progress. We have consumed $20, we have consumed $20, we have completed 2 weeks, and but we were expected to complete 20% of the work, but we have ended up only completing 5% of the work. So this is where this philosophy of plan, do, check, act comes into picture, where you are going to check on what you have done against the plan, and you are going to determine what is your action plan. Okay, now here comes your action plan. As a project manager, you are expected to talk about something called a get well soon plan. Get well soon plan is what are you going to do to get your project back on track. Usually when we talk about project management, we talk about the status of the project as the RAG status. Okay, what is the RAG status called? Have you ever heard about something called stoplight charts? I believe all of you should have, right? So what is this stoplight chart? When we talk about the overall health of the project, okay, we are going to talk about the health of the project in 3 different ways. One is the health of the project is red, the second one it is amber, and the third one it is green. Okay, amber or yellow, and the third one is green. Green is everything is perfect. We have a plan, the actuals are in line with the plan, there are no customer complaints, the customer is happy, we are making progress, all the what is expected to deliver is being delivered, there are no quality issues, there is no attrition. It is an utopian land. Utopian land is everybody is happy. But these two are something which are not, which is not a very favorable scenario to the project manager. So what do you have to do? You will have to act. Okay, and in the world of project management, what do we call it? We call it as correction. We talk about corrective and preventive action, right? So we should use the same vocabulary. We should use the same vocabulary. When we talk about correction is, what is correction? Correction is, if there is fire, you try to put the fire out. Okay, now in this case here, the overall health of the project is yellow or it is red. So what is the required correction? Correction is you try to put the fire out at that time. Corrective is taking a step back, trying to understand what caused the fire and how to prevent it. And preventive is what? Okay, primarily when we talk about preventive action, we say, right, prevention is better than cure. Preventive is stop the fire from happening. So this is called mistake proofing. Okay, so how can you stop the fire from happening? So as a project manager, you are expected to understand how you can flip the health of the project from red to amber to green, so that everybody in the organization, in the project, all your stakeholders are relatively happy. So primarily, right, now we'll come back. Now we understand, right, at this point in time, logically we understand what is the length and breadth of project management. And most importantly, when we talk about project management, projects, they should be formally initiated. Okay, initiated, they should be planned, they should be executed. Okay, we will call it as planning. Failing to plan is planning to fail. Initiation, we'll call it as initiation. Okay, planning, execution. Okay, we talk about monitor and control. Monitor and control. What cannot be measured cannot be controlled. So typically, right, as a project manager, you're going to talk about schedule, you're going to talk about cost, you're going to talk about quality. These are important metrics, right? So these are called important metrics which you should measure. And then we talk about closure, right? So typically, right, we will talk about what is the life cycle and what are the various span of activities that you are expected to perform as a seasoned project manager. Okay, very famously called the iron triangle of project management. Okay, the three important elements, always remember this. Whenever we talk about a project, the first important element that comes into picture is there is a certain scope of work that we intend to accomplish, right? So that is called the scope of work. Once we fairly understand what is the scope of work from our stakeholders, the next important thing is we are able to determine the schedule for the project, right? So that is very important. So when we talk about project management, the first important element is scope. Once we fairly understand the scope which comes from stakeholders, the next important thing is to go ahead and understand how many resources are required. Okay, the resources that are required to work on the project. It could be hardware resources, software resources, infrastructure resources, or any other kind of resources. And then we talk about the third important aspect is schedule. So, right, the three important aspects that we talk about, one is the scope, the schedule, the cost, and once the scope, schedule are determined, it becomes easy for you to determine the cost, right? So I hope you are able to understand that relatively things are sequential in nature. If somebody were to come and say that I can directly derive the schedule without understanding the scope and understanding what is the organization's capability to supply resources, it will be a very unfair statement to make. Okay, so this is very famously called the iron triangle of project management. We start with scope. Okay, we understand the scope which comes from stakeholders, and then we talk about the resources. Okay, and once the scope and resources are clear to us, we are able to define the schedule. And once the scope, resources, and schedule is determined, it becomes easy for us to derive the cost. and most importantly, you need to do a great job in terms of looking at quality. Okay, quality is meeting requirements, doing it right the first time, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's about the philosophy of project management. So what is project management? Significance of project management, right? So what are all those benefits that we get? Because we are talking about a lot of uncertainties, right? So it's equally important for project managers to ensure that they are going to talk about all those key elements. Okay, looking at the rapidly changing environment, looking at stakeholder requirements, talking about scope, schedule, cost, quality, communication, risk, so on and so forth, right? So this gentleman, the he or she plays a very important role. It's going to be a very tight rope walk to manage expectations, to go back and define what is the scope of work, right? And most importantly, trying to do everything that is required to engage your stakeholders. So significance of project management, primarily if you look at planning team. Planning is of paramount importance. Failing to plan is planning to fail. How are you able to identify risks in a project? Okay, and most importantly, what are your mitigation steps? What is mitigation? Mitigation is trying to lessen the impact, right? So taking this example, the whole world has been significantly impacted by this pandemic. A good example of mitigation is, in end of the day, human safety is of paramount importance. So what are we doing in order to protect ourselves from coronavirus disease? We are trying to mitigate the impact. What will happen if somebody falls prey to this virus? That could lead to loss in life. So in order to avoid that, what are we trying to do? We are trying to wear a mask. We are trying to talk about social distancing, and we are talking about frequent sanitization. And most importantly, innovation in the world of medicine is vaccination, right? So there are various vaccines that have come out. We talk about Sputnik, we talk about Covishield, we talk about Covaxin, so on and so forth. So when we talk about mitigation, mitigation is what are you trying to do to lessen the impact. Okay, and in this case, if I am able to maintain social distance, if I am able to wear a mask, if I get vaccinated, even just in case if somebody falls prey to this virus, okay, or if they get this COVID-19, the impact is going to be significantly reduced. Okay, and what is the impact? In most cases, we have witnessed that there has been loss to human life. So in a similar way, when we talk about project management, when your activities are controlled, when your activities are understood, when you're able to articulate them in a better way, your ability to identify risks, your ability to deal with risks is significantly going to be good, right? So that is where the philosophy of project management comes into picture. We talk about identifying what are those uncertainties which are going to impact your project and what are the mitigation steps that you are going to take. Okay, communication becomes so very important. Communication and stakeholder identification, right? So here again, team, a very important aspect is you need to know who your people are. Okay, in terms of the stakeholder identification, right? So one of the most widely used technique, okay, in the world of project management when it comes to identification of people, identification of stakeholders is the power and interest grid, right? When we talk about power and interest, you are going to divide the region between the x-axis and y-axis into 4 quadrants. Okay, when we work in an organization, we have stakeholders, right? So primarily this is with regard to this point which talks about stakeholder identification, right? When we talk about stakeholder identification, the stakeholders, they have high power. Okay, the power of the stakeholder is very high and the interest level of the stakeholder is very high. You have to manage the expectations very closely, right? High power, high interest. Okay, manage the expectations very closely. Then power is very high and interest is very low, right? You keep them satisfied. The big people who are there in the organization, my project is not very strategic in nature. Okay, it's a business as usual project. So but end of the day, I have to ensure that I keep my bosses happy, so keep satisfied. Then we talk about power is very low and interest is also very low. You expend very minimal effort on such people. And then we talk about interest is very high and power is very low, you keep them informed, right? So one of the most important ways of ensuring that your project is successful is primarily identification of stakeholders. Okay, stakeholder identification, it plays a very important role, and you need to ensure once you identify who your people are, you have to work with them to understand what are their various communication requirements. So that is very, very important, right? Then it's equally important that we talk about something called a role and responsibility. Even this is important, right? Because end of the day, everybody should have one common viewpoint. Okay, we talk about something called the RACI matrix. Okay, who is responsible, who is accountable, who is consulted, and who is informed. As a project manager, you have to define what are all the various roles, and most importantly, you have to define who is going to be accountable. Usually, the guy with the decision authority is the PM, the project manager. We talk about responsibility, we talk about somebody being consulted and somebody being informed, a very important aspect. Then defining what is the scope, the timelines, cost required to carry out the project. We spoke about this, right? Very famously, the iron triangle of project management. Okay, right? So then we'll move on. So what is the PMP certification going to be all about? So hearing from the horse's mouth, project management professional. I showed you the landing site, not a presentation rather. So this is the PMI site team. So you have all the liberty to go back and check on the site, project management institute.organization. And if you hover on certifications, you will find a list of certifications that are currently being provided from PMI. And trust me, we have close to 10 lakh professionals across the globe, and still we are counting, and this makes project management the most sought after certification. If you click on PMP, this will directly take you to the landing page, which is going to give you all the required information related to project management. Okay, so research indicates that employers will need to fill close to 2.2 million project oriented roles each year through 2027. So primarily, right, look at the future of project management. Okay, by 2027, 2.2 million jobs. Okay, so we'll be talking about predictive models, we'll be talking about agile models, we'll be talking about hybrid models. What are they? What do they mean to us? Why is it important? That the most important dimensions of project management. One is people. You're going to work with people. You're going to get the job done. Process is very important, right? So process is as simple as you have decided to become a PMP certified professional. So you have started looking at who are the various service providers, you pick one of them, you start working with them, you complete the registration process, you join them, you have access to learning material. There is an instructor who is going to guide you. Learning is going to be fun filled, and end of the day, you complete the course, you pass the examination, you celebrate your success, and you give back something to the community. So that is called a process, right? And we constantly need to keep our eyes and ears wide open when we talk about the environment in which we are operating is primarily the business environment. Okay, so highlighting the connection between projects and organization strategy, right? So we'll be doing all of this once you enroll with us. So project management, PMP stands for project management professional. So we very well know that this is the most sought after certification across the globe on project management. So we'll move forward. So who is a project manager? So primarily, right. So project managers are the ones who ensure that the entire process of project management flows in a controlled manner. We looked at all those elements, right? So starting from right from scope, schedule, cost, quality, communication, risk, procurement, how all of them tie back, what are the various processes that are there, what are the elements of project manager, and how is this guy, he or she, going to do a balancing act. Okay, because end of the day, you have to manage all those key elements of project management. Project manager roles and responsibilities, there are many things, right? So this poor guy, he plays the role of a juggler. Okay, so there are many things that you have to do. We looked at the PMI talent triangle, right? So at least these elements are not new to us now, because we have discussed, right? I have given a live example, right? So failing to plan is planning to fail, working with teams, ability to manage schedules, looking at budget, working in a constrained environment, customer satisfaction, that customer obsession should be there, Are you able to identify what are those uncertainties in the project, right? Are you able to monitor and control them? And most importantly, going back to the reporting requirements, right? So end of the day, not everybody is working with you on the ground. So there are some people who have to be notified about the project, right? They have to be informed about a weekly status or a monthly status or any kind of dashboards that are there. So how do you create reports and how do you align that to the communication requirements is very, very important. Eligibility, hearing from the horse's mouth. So if you look at, right, let me go back. The eligibility period for the PMP examination or the duration is 1 year. Okay, within this 1 year eligibility, you can attempt the examination for 3 times in case you fail to clear the first attempt. So where is the eligibility criteria called out? Are you really eligible to take the examination? You have the eligibility criteria here, okay, very clearly called out. And we'll be guiding you on this. Please be rest assured that once you partner with us, we will look at your educational qualification. So how is the PMP going to help you? Needless to say, international recognition from United States of America Project Management Institute, great employment opportunities. You are going to look at the length and breadth of your knowledge, edge over non-PMP candidates, builds leadership qualities, working across different industries, so many things, right? So employee benefits, all these are, we usually call this as the most important benefits. Okay, why organizations prefer certified professionals? Primarily because improved work culture. It could be because of it leads to better customer satisfaction. Projects are going to be successful when you start working with certified project managers, and that gives you the required confidence. And so that brings us to an end of the slideshow. And thank you very much. Bye bye.